Pete Feenstra, rock in your world. On Get Ready to Rock Radio.
This is the Pete Feenstra feature for Get Ready to Rock Radio, opening tonight's show with two tracks from the legendary Jethro Tull guitar player, Mr. Martin Lancelot Barre. And this is his wonderful version of Life is a Long Song. That was Martin Barre and Life is a Long Song from his brand new 50 Years of Jethro Tull album on the Store for Music label. Let's move from acoustic to electric now for My Sunday Feeling. That was My Sunday Feeling, the opening cut from Martin Barre's brand new double album 50 Years of Jethro Tull on the Store for Music label. And this is the Pete Feenstra feature for Get Ready to Rock Radio, speaking to Martin Barre, legendary Jethro Tull guitarist and the man whose riffs and chord progressions added so much to the band's music. Martin's new 50 Years of Tull retrospective features his favourite songs. It's a double album including both live and studio tracks plus 4 new bonus tracks recorded live at the Wiley Theatre in Illinois. Welcome to the show, Martin.
Hi Pete, thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. First, please tell everybody about Becca Langford, who I think sung a wonderful vocal on that track.
Yeah, well Becca and Alex, or Ali as I know her, but she likes to be called Alex, are two girls from Plymouth. Now I met them, I've lived down near Plymouth for about 12 years, and there's an amazing music scene down here.
Still is.
Seth Lakeman's part of it. There's a lot of great musicians just sort of gigging and scraping a living together, but the two girls did backing vocals on an earlier solo CD of mine, and that's how I met them. I was recommended to them. We became friends, we worked together, they've toured with us, and their voices are just, world class to me. So, it's a double whammy that they're great and they're friends.
Yeah.
They live down the road.
Excellent. Of course, Plymouth being the place that you actually played at the beginning of your career at the Van Dyke Club with Jethro Tull a long time ago.
It's weird, it all ties together.
Yeah, quite so. So 50 Years of Jethro Tull obviously marks the half-century anniversary of you being in the band, and you spread your choices over 2 discs, moving from electric to acoustic. Do you have a preference for either, or is one an extension of the other?
Yeah, I like both, and I like the contrast, and that was, Tull was quite famous for mixing acoustic quiet moments with a loud electric. It took a while for audiences to accept, they had to go quiet to listen to acoustic mix. But it worked, against all the odds. And I've always, I've loved the songs, I love playing acoustic guitar with my own material as well. So yeah, they live side by side, and I love that dynamic contrast.
Let me throw a quote at you, which is this. I've always watched a massive number of guitar players follow the mainstream, and I've never seen the point of doing that. So did you always find enough then in Ian Anderson's songs and the band's arrangements to explore your own niche and style?
Yeah, we traditionally sat in a room to learn the music, and the way Ian brought songs to the band was in a very basic way, a very basic framework. We had a lot to build on, which was great. It meant that I could invent my own guitar parts, add ideas, as did the other guys in the band, and it was a true band in every respect. We arranged everything, we produced everything, we wrote bits in different amounts. So I had a lot of freedom,
Great.
and I've always enjoyed that freedom.
Great stuff. Now you've reinvented or reimagined My Sunday Feeling as a kind of a cool shuffle blues into jazz arrangement. Were all the new arrangements on this record all newly conceived with the album particularly in mind, or do some of them go back some time?
They were all rearranged, the ones that were for on stage, because I just wanted to play the songs live.
Yeah.
But some of them didn't need changing, that didn't need touching. Others I just had a bit of fun with, and in many ways, when people have heard a track in a certain way for 40, 45, 50 years, that they like to hear a different take on it, and hopefully the song's still there. It's very recognisable, but it's just a slightly different take on it, and I like doing that. I like people to think that they've heard something different, something new, something fresh, and they can tell that a lot of thought and effort's been put into what we do.
Now, the stand-up album was your recording debut with Jethro Tull, and you said at the time that you were terrified because the album was a change in direction for the band. So at that point, were you simply playing parts at the time then?
No, we'd written everything. Christmas 1968, we learned all that stand-up material in a rehearsal room, and then we took it on the road. In England, we played about maybe 4, 5, 6 gigs, and people didn't like it. That they wanted Mick Abrams' blues version of Jethro Tull, and they didn't like the new music very much, but they slowly turned around, and the first gig where the audience really reacted positively was up in Manchester, and it was a big relief for me because I was the new boy, and for Ian because it was his new music, and it was a turning point. It was where Jethro Tull got accepted as a very original band.
You kind of already answered this, but in an interview dating back to 1970, a long time ago, you described that album as being a tense album. And actually the press contrasted that with the more laid-back feel of Benefit. But my question is, by tense, did you mean that you were laying down the backing tracks in a kind of studied fashion then, so Ian could add his vocals and flute later? Is that what happened?
No, I think the only tension was the fact that it was, my first album with Tull. It was a vital album, probably more so looking back than it was at the time. But I was just I really wanted to make it work well. I want to be successful musically. It was fun to make. It really was. So the stress was more internal and just wanting to do the best job possible, and to get things rolling.
Thinking about the new album, but still delving back into stand-up, did you ever think about including songs like We Used to Know on this album? Because apart from it being an early fan favourite, it was also notorious, of course, for the Eagles Hotel California connection, the solo of which seems to have been influenced a lot by it.
Oh yeah, We Used to Know. There's a lot of tracks I could play, and I look at them all, but they've got to inspire me as much as I need to inspire the track. So there's like a big box of ideas somewhere near me now, and I occasionally delve into the box. But the important thing is I change the show all the time.
Right.
I don't want to go back to a town with the same show that from the year before. Everything's got to be new and fresh, and that's why I did that album, completely re-recorded all those tracks, because I really didn't want a 50-year anniversary just to be a token gesture where you sort of throw a load of tracks together, put it in a pretty packaging, and hope everybody's going to think that's really meaningful. I wanted it to be really fresh.
I think, finishing up on that, I think, the thing about We Used to Know was at the time it was this kind of It was the wah-wah thing. It was just so fresh and new at the time, but I suppose 50 years on, it probably doesn't sound as exciting. But anyway, there we are. You've answered that, and of course you've got a different selection of tracks and live in New York as well, haven't you?
Yeah, but we were on tour, and the whole idea of doing a 50-year celebration came up. I mean, obviously a year after the 50-year anniversary of Jethro Tull as a band, and I thought, well, nothing much had happened in that 50th year. I think the fans deserve and probably want something a bit more meaningful. So I had an idea of how to do it and what to do, and we had 3 days off in New York State, and we just went into this rehearsal room studio and recorded it. It was all live. Right. So even the vocals were recorded live.
Okay, time for another track, and this mirrors the new album sequencing. In fact, the second track. This is For 1,000 Mothers.
Did you hear, Mother?
That was Martin Barre and For 1,000 Mothers from the 50 Years of Jethro Tull album on the Store for Music label. On the original cut of that song, Martin, whose idea was it for Clive to come back in on the drums at the end?
I've never been asked that question. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have to ask you.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask Clive.
I mean, it was such a dynamic thing to do, I think,
It's fabulous because even now, when we play it, the audience forget that it's coming. So, I just love that moment of where they clap at the full sending, then we start again. It's really fun. But I really do not remember.
Okay, no problem. There's also 2 guitar lines on there, something that has become a feature of this album, whether it's lead and rhythm or the dual harmony guitars. It's something I also noticed on the Road Less Travelled album. Well, when did you first get into that then?
Well, I think because when I started the Martin Barre band, we were doing Jethro Tull material, obviously there were no keyboards and no flute, so I needed the second guitar to take some of those parts.
Yes.
And I found that with 2 guitars you can play a keyboard part perfectly well. So sonically it works really well. Dan's a good guitar player and enjoys playing it, and it gives us that sort of working together. There's interaction on stage with 2 guitars. I know it's been done before, and a lot of people do it, but I love harmonies, and I love the fact that you have to make an arrangement from just 2 instruments.
Yes, quite so. Now, when you joined the band, did Ian discuss his musical vision for the band with you? The fact that he wanted to explore new horizons and not just be another blues band?
No, he didn't. Maybe he was experimenting, and I think he wasn't convinced that it would work until that gig in Manchester.
Right.
No, Ian's always kept himself to himself, and even in the latter years, I never heard the lyrics until I got a copy of the CD.
Really?
Vinyl, yeah. So, it was all built from the ground upwards, and there was never that end product.
But building from the ground upwards, does that mean you were kind of expanded your blues and folk influences that were already there in the band?
Yeah, that people joined the band. Dave Pegg brought folk influences. Yeah. David Palmer brought classical. We were just looking for ideas and inspiration from any corner of music and bringing them together.
Right. I want to go back to kind of early 1969 and your first American tour. Was it difficult to make the transition then from playing UK clubs such as the Nottingham Boat Club, the Toby Jug and the Van Dyke Club that we mentioned earlier on, to playing the Fillmore East and Fillmore West and what have you? Or were you cushioned by the fact that you were a support band on that tour?
No, not at all. They were intimidating, exciting, fantastic. But the nice thing about it was we're all together. It was a new experience for all of us.
Yes.
So it wasn't like joining a band that had already gone to that level.
Right.
And that's why I feel a real strong part of the heritage of the band. I will always regret that I wasn't there from the inception, because that's just a slightly different feel, on a band. But yeah, we were learning our game. We were discovering new places and taking music to a bigger level, bigger audiences. It was just incredible, really exciting.
Well, one of the reasons I asked that question was I had Kim Simmons on the show a few weeks back from Savoy Brown, and he made a point that he learnt very, very quickly that having been on the same club circuit that you were in the UK, when he ended up playing these great barns of places in the States, he had to do more than just play guitar. He had to fill the space, put on a show, in effect.
Yeah. I guess that's what evolved for Jethro Tull. We wanted to entertain people, and we saw a lot of pompous rock bands and prancing about on stage. And we sort of took the mickey out of those bands by being the opposite, making a joke of what we did, keeping the music serious, but making ourselves laughing at ourselves. It just sort of went from there.
So thinking back to the new project, having established your own solo career with something like 9 albums, was it strange going back to some of the old Tull material then and realising just how far you've come since then?
Yeah, it feels natural, and I listened to the early songs and I recognise how I did them, how I felt about them. It's just been a continuous process, but I enjoy what I did even in the early days. Hopefully I've made it a little bit more refined, but it's always been with me. I can probably play most Tull songs. Somebody just asking me to do it right now.
Right.
I'm not going to do it. But I think I could, because my brain's full of all that music.
Okay.
And it's ingrained.
All right, I want to play what I consider one of the highlights of the new record. Originally it was on Aqualon. This is Hymn 43.
Oh, Father high in heaven, smile down upon your son, yeah. Was busy with his money games, his women and his gun. Oh, Jesus, save me. the city, and on the mountains of the moon, yeah. His cross was rather bloody, and he could hardly roll his stone. Jesus saved me.
That was Martin Barre and Hymn 43 from 50 Years of Jethro Tull, to be found on the Store for Music label. Another great arrangement, different version of an early Tull classic, and as I said, a real highlight, and your guitar kind of takes the place of piano and flute on the original, and it's arguably one of Dan Crisp's very best vocals on the album, I think. Would you agree with that?
Oh, well, I'm pleased you say it, but, I'm a big fan of Dan, and, he takes to Tull's music like a fish to water, and is trying to replace Ian or replicate him. I mean, I've known Dan before we'd even heard of Jethro Tull.
Wow.
We were doing little gigs down here in the southwest, and his voice was the same. It's really matured.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Dan's performance.
Excellent. You've described the Aqualung sessions as being stressful, and apparently you weren't getting on all that well together at the time. Were you then surprised by the critical praise at the time, and your role in that in particular?
Yeah, we never expected it to be a popular album because we had a real tough time.
Yeah.
It was quite a negative emotion going on in the studio, but I contrast it to albums where we just had the best time ever, locked ourselves away for 2 months and just had a load of fun, and nobody liked the album.
Wow.
Under wraps, people don't like it, but we had the best time recording it. So but maybe out of that stress comes something different, something special.
Yeah.
But it was a never planned to be a big album, and of course it was a
monster,
really important to us.
Yeah. Now, Ian Anderson described the opening riff to Aqualung, and I quote, as wondering what Beethoven would have written if he'd had a Gibson Les Paul. Did he throw that down to you as a challenge then for you to run with?
Not in those words, certainly. No, that he wrote the riff. And but from there on, I was the only one that played it.
Yes.
Ian just played acoustic.
Uh-huh.
And then I arranged the solo, which is sort of based on the song anyway.
Yeah.
There was a lot of freedom to put ideas into the songs, but it just evolved.
Right.
It wasn't a special song particularly. It was just another song. On that album, even though it was the title track, but we didn't know what was going to happen with it.
Right. Now, you've announced that you hope to play the whole of Aqualung in 2021 to tie in with another 50th anniversary there. Will you then be rearranging some of that material too?
I've done a bit already. I've got in My God, where there's a flute solo.
Yeah.
It's obviously a little bit of a problem for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do a guitar solo, and I'm not going to play flute. So I found a piece of music I love, Palladio by Carl Jenkins, and I've recorded it. It's up on YouTube. But that will be the My God solo. It just sort of goes to this ensemble piece of music. It's quite heavy.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not sure what we'll do. I don't want to think too much about it.
No.
It's too far down the line.
Okay.
2021 is a dream.
Okay, let's meanwhile play another track from Martin Barre, and this is a song for Jeffrey.
I've seen the sea where I'm going to. I don't want.
That was Martin Barre and a song for Jeffrey from the 50 Years of Jethro Tull album. That track's another great example of your arranging ability and the fact that you replaced the flute with guitar. Did you ever think then there was a time when the flute played too much of a part in Tull's material? Sorry about that question.
That's a fabulous question. Yes, all the time. No, not at all.
Right.
We had a great understanding in the band. Everybody had more than enough to do.
Yeah.
There were never complaints about not having enough space on stage.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it changed because in the latter days, with Ian's voice having a few problems, that there was more instrumental music, and we stopped doing the early songs, which were more guitar orientated. So it did change. But I'm happy to sit in the background and play rhythm. I don't want to be a rock star guitar player, at the front of the stage, jumping about, playing a million notes.
But thinking about guitar being an important part of the early stuff, the slide break on that song doesn't come until halfway through the song, whereas Mick Abraham's original slide part was nearer to the beginning of the song. That's almost incidental, but I found a reference to you playing that song on the Johnny Halliday show in France. So did you actually play it regularly then in the early days?
Yeah. Well, it's a technical thing, that the original song's an open tuning.
Right.
So I play it with concert tuning, so it's the bulk of the song.
Sure.
Doesn't lend itself to being played on slide.
Right.
But I have done it going back to the original tuning, and then I play it all on slide. So it's purely a practical thing, the way I tune the guitar. And I didn't want to have a separate guitar. I don't want to pick up different guitars. So it's a compromise. But I like the fact that I changed the riff a little bit.
Yes.
And I wrote that when we were in Tull. So I just sort of rearranged it for a TV show.
Good stuff. Now we've talked about your arrangements, but what about Dan Crisp's interpretive singing and phrasing? How much room did you give him on the whole new project?
Yeah, well, I give him all the room he needs because there's no, I don't lay down any ground rules because I want him to be himself. I want him to really love and enjoy what he plays, which he does. I don't want to tell people what I think they should be playing, unless that really goes against the grain.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, occasionally I just think, well, Dan, it's a really important melody line. You probably, the fans will know it. You probably need to do it. But essentially, it's very rare that happens. And I just leave him. He does his job great. So leave him alone.
Well, let's play an example of what he does so well. This is Steel Monkey. That was Martin Barre and Steel Monkey from 50 Years of Jethro Tull. Great track, Martin, which again you've completely transformed from the keyboard-led original. But having said that, I read that Crested and Knave was one of your favourite albums. Were you collectively surprised at that album's success, especially the fact it won a Grammy?
Well, I was surprised that we had anything to do with Grammys.
Yeah.
But I liked the album. I was very proud of it because essentially it was me, Ian and Dave Pegg recorded the whole album, just the three of us. So we had a lot to do, a lot of work, a lot of input, a lot of ideas, like a big thing before. But particularly in that album, there's a lot of guitar. I enjoyed playing it. So yeah, I was pleased with what I'd done. I was proud of it. So the Grammy was the sort of cream on the cake, to have that recognition for recording a good album, a great album, I guess. I think we deserved it. I think it was the right thing to happen.
Did you ever find the late 80s a difficult time for you as a guitar player, given the fact that the musical direction was increasingly going more towards a keyboard flavoured sound.
Yeah, no, nothing's ever worried me at all. And like you said earlier, I never followed trends with guitar players, so it didn't bother me in the slightest. No, a guitar can be a supporting instrument. And I think it was Steve Lukather who said he made more of a living playing rhythm guitar than he did lead guitar.
On sessions, yeah.
It's a side of the guitar that's sort of underrated, but it's really as vital as anything.
Going back to an early theme we were talking about, which was of Tull exploring new and exciting music, did the band collectively feel the same sort of deflation then that Ian would have done when critics actually panned Passion Play? After all, you were an important part of the arrangements by then, or did Ian sort of take it all on his own shoulders by refusing to talk to the press at the time?
Well, I think he just got overblown totally out of proportion by the management, who that they put it to the press that we were really devastated. Essentially we took it on the chin, and we've never ever expected everybody to love everything we do, because if that was the agenda, every album would sound the same. It would be a Aqualung 2, Aqualung 3. Give the people what they've already liked. No, we never did it. No, so we experimented.
I think, but there was some kind of a disconnect even before that when you put out Thick as a Brick, because I clearly remember that both the album and the tour was warmly embraced by the fans, but the press weren't that. Well, they called it an overblown concert album, but I guess you took it on the chin. I think you've answered that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it never affected us. The Thick as a Brick was a huge success.
Yeah, absolutely.
Play. So I know they didn't like it as much, but we carried on at the same level.
So it's been said one of the reasons for Jethro Tull's durability has been the way that they changed their musical direction, which is true, through blues, jazz, folk, rock, hard rock and even electronica. Do you see an irony then in the fact that years later you viewed the band as going through the motions?
Going through?
In terms of playing the same set list, the same...
Yeah, but that's a different thing,
Yeah.
I always want change, and there wasn't enough change. The frustration I had is that we had the financial ability to change the show, to change the production, do a lot more. I think it just got a little stale. The fire had gone out a little bit, and I didn't like that, because I don't do that.
Right.
I do 100%. So it was frustrating. I wanted to do a lot more and bring a lot more to the production and the music side of Tull. But so maybe when it finished, it was a good time to finish things.
Now, you've called Jethro Tull your own musical heritage, but was there a point when you thought it stopped being a band and become more of a vehicle for Ian himself, who, after all, was always the personification of the band?
Yeah, it maybe it didn't really bother me, because I don't have pretensions of being a star, so my ego was never hurt because it didn't exist. And maybe it got biased towards Ian, but you've got to remember that at the very beginning, that Ian's image really sold the band. It pulled us out of that huge pile of music that was going over to America, around the world, playing tours in England, because it was the band with a sort of crazy flute player.
Yeah, of course.
So you can't downgrade that. Ian is a vital part of Tull's history, and there's no, it's no less than that.
Okay, I'm going to play two more tracks before we go. Here's the first one. This is called Teacher.
But I must insist it's true. They thank me for his...
That was Martin Barre, my guest on the Pete Feenstra feature tonight for Get Ready to Rock Radio, and a track called Teacher, which was actually released as a single and now reinterpreted on the 50 Years of Jethro Tull album on the Store for Music label. There's always been a thumping bass line on that track, but you brought your guitar into the front of the mix, which gives it a fresh vitality, which you could say for the whole of this album, really. My question I want to ask you is this. You said about the new album that I wanted to create a different band, one playing the true music of Jethro Tull, but with my take and my way of playing it. What do you mean then by the true music of Jethro Tull? Because after all, once you've got a 50-year history behind you, there's plenty of room for debate about what is the true Jethro Tull music, I suppose.
Yeah, it's just the essence, and I can't describe it, I can't put it in a can and tell it, but the essence of Jethro Tull was 50 years of trying different music, of improving. It's just like a boiling pot of ingredients, and I've always wanted to keep that alive, and I can't describe it. I couldn't, I couldn't replicate it, but I understand it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that Ian's the same. He's such a big part of that history, and I respect it. And I want that respect to show through, but I want it to be vibrant and dynamic, and to rock. For want of a different word, I want to go on stage, and the audience, I want to just, lift them off the seats.
So I guess, given the current hiatus with coronavirus, you've already planned ahead, as we've spoken about, for Aquarun next year. So presumably, you'll go back to your own career, solo career, in 2022. Is that the problem? Or aren't you thinking that far ahead yet?
Well, I think most people are thinking 2022, and but anything in 2021 is going to be, if it's not financially viable, it's going to be so different. It's not going to be normal at all.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody knows. I haven't read anything by anybody that can define what's going to happen in music. I know the numbers. I know that theatres need to be 60-70% full to break even. I don't know, but I think 2021 might be pushing it.
Right.
Personally, but I'll be there the second I can play again. I'll be there. I'm not going to hold back.
Well, Martin, it's been my absolute pleasure having you on the show. I really appreciate this. Just before we go, can you give me your social media links so people can check out the album anyway, and wherever
I'm
you're
on Facebook. That I'm sure that people will find me, and then website martinbarre.com. So it's very easy to find.
Brilliant.
DVD coming out for Christmas.
Oh, excellent.
And the 4 bonus tracks from the DVD. It's live at the Wildie, which is a gorgeous theatre near St Louis, and we recorded the show in one night, and I've been working on that, the production on it, for 3 months. Wow. So I'm really pleased with it. I think it's going to be a very special package.
Excellent. Okay, well, thanks again for being on the show. It's been fantastic. Let's play out with Martin Barre's version then of Nothing Is Easy. This is taken from the 50 Years of Jethro Tull. You'll find it on the Store for Music label. Enjoy this track, everybody. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Past hour or so you've been listening to Martin Barre chatting to Pete Feenstra for Get Ready to Rock Radio. Our thanks to Martin and to Pete. Make his interview special on a Sunday a regular date when he chats to any number of movers and shakers in the blues into rock world, and that's at 2000 GMT. And you can find out more by checking out Pete's dedicated page and catch up with previous shows at our website. And not forgetting Pete's Tuesday Rock and Blues show, starting a 5-hour blues rock marathon. Tuesday is Blues Day. Again, you can listen to previous shows and check out all the playlists at getreadytorock.radio.com. From all of us here at Get Ready to Rock Radio, thank you for listening.